You're watching Power Nation. Hey everybody, welcome back to Dirt and Trails. Today we are busy working on our Jeep Kaiser build we have dubbed the Spartan. I have been busy pouring coal, getting the bed ready for its bed cage, while Eric has been busy stripping the frame, getting the motor out, all that good stuff so we can inspect it for cracks, rust, and all that other good stuff. How's it looking?
Well, like you said, today's the day we're gonna go through and inspect all of our drivetrain parts, engine trans, transfer case, and both of these axles. And once these come off of here, we got just a little bit more stripping to do and we can get this frame sent out for sandblasting. All that and then some today on Dirt and Trails. All right, so what we've got to do now that we've got the engine, transmission, and transfer case out of this thing is we're gonna check a few more things out before we remove these axles, just to make sure we've got a complete list of parts for what's gonna need to be replaced on here. Now, our steering linkage, something this old, you're always gonna be looking for every kind of issue in the book. Now, we got our first one right here. You can hear it. You don't have to see it, you can hear that tie rod just flopping around in there.
This hole right here, there's grit and grime level with the bottom of the hole, and same over here.
Oh, you mean like that?
Yep, just like that.
Chiefest issue number one, right there, we're gonna have to fix this frame.
This entire section.
Oh yeah, because you can see.
And same thing, it's all full. So I'm thinking before we send this out to powder coat, we at the very least just sit here with a zip disc and just rip that right out. The bottom of this cross member is rotted out completely.
Yeah, that's definitely gotta go, but I mean, cross members for you, that's a pretty easy fix.
I have a ton of fabrication that I'm gonna have to do to get this back up and running. Mechanically though, these spring clips are completely gone, which would be a good beginner's project for you.
Definitely need to do brakes in these axles because that pedal went through the floor when we picked it up. I'll pop the covers off of both axles and then same thing, transmission and transfer case, I'll take a look at those too. Thankfully, it's all, old, solid, cast iron and steel construction, so I don't think we're gonna have anything to worry about there. We know the engine runs. We're off to a pretty good start mechanically.
Yeah, electrical, we're gonna have to go completely all new on that.
Yeah, so I've already planned for that. I think I've got a pretty good plan worked out. We'll take a look at that later.
Springs, I think we can reuse the same spring pack as long as when you take them apart, there's no broken leaves.
Yeah, as long as it all stays together, I think we'll be all right. Well, I guess all that's left now is get to work. You wanna start cutting that up while I get these axles pulled?
May as well.
All right, let's go for it.
This is gonna get hot, so just make sure you watch out. Do we need this cross member, or can I just get rid of that completely?
That's for the transfer case. That's up to you. Do you want to have to build a new one?
I'll build a new one. All right. This is like the never-ending story of vehicles. You think you've solved the riddle, and then all of a sudden, surprise!
Well, if this is the never-ending story, I want my Falcor.
There's spray foam in here.
In the frame?
Actually.
Seriously?
Yeah. There's just like a little...
You gotta be kidding me.
Oh, where'd it go? It is in there. Oh, here it is. The reason that I'm cleaning out the frame before I cut off the bottom section and get this whole plate right out is because it was so full of rust and debris that if I was to cut with the torch, all of that slag would just blow back into the torch and clog up the tip and all that other stuff, and it would be a pain in the butt. So I'm just cleaning this out now. I'm gonna come back with the torch in a second, cut off that plate, and then move on to the other side. You want to bring me over and, oh, can you pass me that knockometer, please?
There we go. All right, so yeah, the only thing holding that spring pack together right now is this, what's left of this guy. I think we're looking at a similar problem here in the front. So honestly, I think just new leaf springs all around to be safe.
I was set on pushing you to just be like, no, let's just rebuild these ones.
I mean, I was hoping so, but.
You can't reuse that.
No.
And the way those bottom two leaves, the ends are hooked the other way, it's almost like they rebuilt it but just used normal steel.
Kind of makes a fella wonder, don't it?
So many questions. So this is one of the tubes that's gonna go from the back of the truck to the front. Now you can start to see how this is all coming together. So what I'm gonna do, though, is I'm gonna put that up there like that. I'm going to grab a level. Now I'm gonna confirm that the tube is level, which it is. So I'm done bending. I wanna show you guys how I like tacking this stuff together and laying it out. So what I want at the end of it, I want a nice trough, roughly like that, all the way around, for the weld to actually sit in there and dig in and bite. Now there's quite a few ways you can put these together. One way is you could try and fumble it through and be like, okay, I'm gonna hold it like that with one hand, tack it together, move on. You could use magnets, but I like to just use pieces of similar material. So I'm gonna put these here like this and as a standoff for this main piece. I'll come up, I will line everything up where I want it, and then I'm gonna come in from the back and I'm gonna tack it at the ends and as well as in the middle. Those tacks are gonna stay there while I weld everything out and they're not gonna be in the way. I'm not gonna have to grind them out so I can weld over them or nothing like that. I'll take the next piece, put it on top like that, and then we'll be ready to go. Now that we have our feet for the cage tacked together, it's gonna live roughly in this location. We are going to have a piece of tube that comes up and then goes into the back of the cab. Then we're gonna do some cross bracing, we're gonna put our light bar in. And what this is gonna do is it is going to make the frame a lot more rigid. It is also going to act as a second roll cage because you gotta remember, we're gonna be doing a cage in the cab as well. And once those two are tied together, it's gonna make everything a lot stronger. So as we continue on with our roll cage for the bed here, there's a few things that you need to stop and keep in mind when you're fabricating stuff like this. Sometimes the big picture that you want to build is not what you need to do right off the hop. But I don't want it just to be some plain Jane light bar. What I am gonna do is build everything off of this 1 3/4 120 wall DOM, and then I'm gonna bend up this 1.5 inch 120 wall DOM, and it is gonna form a hoop that comes down like this. We're using 2 LP9s and 2 LP6s that we got from Baja Design. And if you wanna light up a grid square, you go with these guys here. So let's go put this in the bender, let's bend it up. We're gonna go 30 degrees each side, see how it looks, and then tweak it from there. So right now, I have bent the one end. Right off the hop, I have a feeling I should already put more into it, but I'm gonna wait until this side is bent up as well, and then we'll see. All right, now we're gonna take this over to the table. I'm gonna check this against the lights and see how it looks. So we are getting there. However, I want it obviously tighter. I'm gonna put these back into the bender and I'm just gonna keep going until we come in. This is a tool that allows you to measure your CLR or center line reference, and it gives you your degrees on one side and how many inches it is consuming in 1/4 inch increments for the bend itself. So this is telling me that if I wanna get right up to the edge of this tube, I need to go with 67, 68 degrees. I'm gonna go with 68 and then call her a day there and it'll wrap around nicely to there. Now that we have our tube bent, it is on the money and exactly what I'm looking for. My next step, start cutting the tubes off, and then once that's done, I'm gonna tack everything in place and keep rocking from there. Now that I have the top hoop done, I have my spacing correct and all that other good stuff, now I'm gonna start taking some notes and some measurements, because from here, I can move back to the actual roll cage for the bed of this truck. And the measurements that I need are from the bottom of this tube to the top of this tube. So I'm gonna take a flat edge, put it up against there, another flat edge, put it here. What that's gonna do is it is gonna project the straight line straight up from the table, so it's easier to measure. And I'm looking at 12 1/16. So I now know I have 12 1/16 of an inch that I need to allot for in the top of this roll cage so I can make this light bar all cool and stuff. There we go. That is now tacked in place. All right, now that we have all of our tubing and plate prepped, ready to go in, we got Gabby in from Forney Industries. Thank you for coming in, Gabby. I was told you're gonna give us a hand doing some work today?
Yeah, definitely. We'll get working on this and see what kind of help I can give you.
Awesome. What have you been doing at Forney? Like, what do you do there exactly?
So I'm the supervisor of the engineering service department. So we do a lot of work on our welders and troubleshooting and different things like that. So
awesome. And you're also a teacher?
Yes, I also teach at our community college in Fort Collins as a welding instructor. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Let's do it.
The 250 MP is a great MIG welder. It is also an MP machine, so you do have the benefits of stick and TIG as well. Of course, we're just going to be MIG welding this today, but for the thicker materials, this machine is awesome for that. It's a 1/2 inch rated machine. It can do, you know, anything you want it to for the most part, and it could do thicker if you were to bevel and prep your plates first, which is really awesome. This is our new shop size machine with the cart that's involved underneath it. That makes it easy to move around the shop and get where you need it to be. So there's also a lot of good settings on that machine, a little bit more advanced settings on the MIG side, so you can control your crater fill, so that way at the end of your weld, you don't just get a big hole and then it's weakened there. It can actually sit there and fill that hole for you.
Now, can you also run flux core and multi-shield and all that on here as well?
Yeah, you can run gas, gasless, whatever you need to, dual shield,
Perfect, groovy. Let's rock and roll.
Awesome.
Now, when I'm doing stuff like this, what I like to do is do everything coming down to the bottom and then do the bottom weld so it just ties everything in nice and tight.
Yes, definitely, I agree with that. And then you kind of hide all of your craters and everything else. It kind of pulls it all together, like you said, and makes it just one piece.
That is laying down like seriously nice bead now that we have that dialed in. Now that we have everything cut, welded, and ready to go into the box, we are gonna start doing just that. You ready?
I'm ready. So the true set here is gonna be the plate with the 2 arrows going into it. And then we have a +2 trim. You could adjust that if you'd like.
I got this side. You wanna grab that side?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So now that we have our plates tacked in, we are one step closer to actually getting some tubing in. Now what we need to do is measure where this is gonna go, because these notches here have to line up with this. So what we're gonna do to make life easier, we are going to square up these 2 tubes with our light bar. We're gonna tack that in place real quick. Then we're gonna get this up. And while it's up, we can sit there with one hand, put the tube underneath, hold this up, and get it going, because this is a very integral spot. All right, let's move on to the next side. All right, so that's up, that's up. Thank you for coming out today, Gabby. I really appreciate your help. Where can people get support if they need it?
Yeah, so if you visit forneyind.com, you can find the phone number for our customer service team, as well as our expert tech team who can help with any troubleshooting or anything that you may need for support on your welders.
Awesome, good. You wanna tack it out and then get going?
Let's go ahead.
I want to give a big thank you to Gabby from Forney Industries for coming out and helping us get this all tacked and fitted in place. Now that everything is in its forever home, I'm going to start burning everything in. Now that the back is fully welded in, we're moving to the front, and I want to show you guys just a little bit of safety that I'm building into this. When building a roll cage, the more points that you can have touching each other, the better. One of them is this little bit that I made right here. Right now at the bottom, we're gonna be welded in. We're gonna be welded in at the top as well. I made this little bracket here so that it wraps around 2/3 of the tube and it holds it in the center as well. And now I'm just gonna TIG weld all of this in place.
Now that we got everything removed from the truck, it's time to do a little bit more teardown before we can actually start fixing and replacing stuff. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do here is I gotta get this transmission removed from this engine so the engine can go on a stand. Now, normally this is a pretty straightforward process, but this one is a little bit different than most. So we're gonna get started by removing our transfer case and parking brake levers and linkages off the side of this transmission. Now, as I take this apart, I'm gonna try and reassemble as much as I can just to make sure that everything gets back in the right place. We get all the right spacers in the right places. This last bolt in our linkage assembly isn't actually a bolt, it's just a really big screw. And if you know anything about dealing with screws in stuff like this, you know that over time, they actually have a tendency to be even more of a pain to take out than most bolts. So what you're gonna wanna do for stuff like this is get an impact driver tool. Basically, just an impact actuated screwdriver. So what you're gonna do is just get it in there, put some tension on it, and then give it a couple taps. Come out nice and easy. Now, I'm gonna go set this aside because after a little bit of rebuilding and cleanup, we will be using this again. Now, I mentioned that this engine and transmission separation is a little bit different, and here's where we're gonna get into that. So you can see we've got 2 bolts here on the top of the bell housing that go straight into the engine block. You don't see any other bolts around the outside of this bell housing because they are actually inside, right about here and straight in. How are you supposed to get those out? Well, that's where the really interesting part comes in. We actually have to remove the transmission assembly from the bell housing before we can remove the bell housing from the engine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this engine off the side of the table so that we can just slide this transmission straight out. Now, I'm not trying to actually pick this engine up. I just need it off the table enough so that I can swing it out. I'm gonna put some deep creep on the wheels of this cherry picker. Good Lord. Now, I'm breaking these by hand instead of with power tools, just to make sure that we're eliminating most of the risk of breaking or stripping anything. Before I remove this last bolt all the way, I'm gonna leave it in there as a stop so that the transmission doesn't just come flying out of there. It's gonna let it sit against the bell housing without falling out. Just pull this straight on back. There you have it, one Borg Warner T98A 4-speed. All right, now that we have the transmission out, we've got the engine down off the table, we're gonna go ahead and pull our cross shaft and our throwout bearing out first so that we can get our pressure plate and clutch disc removed. Before we can remove the throwout bearing from the cross shaft, we've got a little set screw in here. It needs to get loosened up, and that'll allow it to come off of the shaft. Grab the bearing, give it a little twist so it starts getting some movement in there, and you start working it out like that. Our next step is gonna be to remove our pressure plate and our clutch disc. Turning the engine over to remove a clutch or a flywheel or a flex plate is necessary to be able to get to all the bolts. You wanna do this and turn your engine over by hand. You can make it a little bit easier by pulling your spark plugs, then you won't have to fight the compression stroke. But thankfully, this one turns over pretty easy, so I ain't gotta worry about it. Now that we're onto our last bolt, I'm just gonna make sure I've got my hand under here to support our pressure plate. There we go. I've definitely seen worse. Oh, never mind. I'm only loosening these, not taking them all the way off. That way our flywheel doesn't have a chance to come falling down. Right on out the bottom. Now that actually does not look too bad. I mean, we got a lot of grime buildup around the edge, but the actual friction surface here, that doesn't look bad. On our ring gear here, you can see we've got a few dead spots where the teeth have started to wear off. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be easier to just replace the whole thing. But for this one, it's really gonna depend on parts availability. So we'll figure that out later. For right now, let's get this bell housing out of the way. Now we're gonna wanna be mindful pulling this off because I did leave the starter connected, so when it comes loose, it's gonna be a little bit front heavy. And just like that, there's a mess all over my floor. Now that we got the engine up on a stand, I'm gonna go ahead and keep tearing it apart because there's some stuff that we gotta check and measure and make sure we get replacement parts that are actually gonna work. Oh boy, this one, that might need the impact. Now I'm gonna go ahead and remove our thermostat housing. And it's kind of an interesting setup because you can see it sits on top of the intake here. So a little curious exactly how it looks inside because I have never personally seen a setup like that. With the thermostat out of the way, I'm gonna move on with taking off this carburetor. There we go. So now I'm gonna use a pair of these hose grip pliers to help pull these wires off. Gentle grab and twist, will come right off. The plug itself really does not look all that bad. It's a little bit wet, all in all. That doesn't look too bad at all. I'm not really seeing anything that is making me super concerned, so we're not gonna have to go a whole lot further with this teardown, just taking off the rest of the stuff that we're gonna be replacing. After that, well, start putting it back together. As it sits right now, I've got our gasket surfaces for the water pump cleaned up, ready to go, and have stuff put back in. So we're gonna be getting into that here in just a little bit, making our own gaskets. Our first step here is gonna be to cut a new gasket for our water pump. Now, that might sound slightly complicated to do, but it's actually pretty straightforward. The way I'm gonna do this is I'm going to take a full sheet of gasket material and press it up against all these studs, and I'm just gonna imprint every single one of them into it. After that, I'll cut out a rough section that is about the size of our water pump, and from there, I'll go ahead, punch the holes out, and set it straight up against the engine block. From there, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll cut the outside using the edge of our timing cover as a guide. Then I'll take a hammer, tap around the inside edge just to make sure we've got a nice sharp line there, and I'll do the same thing, take a razor blade, trim it out, and we'll have a new gasket. Now, if you look and see in here, we really didn't have a whole lot of corrosion to worry about. I mean, even up inside that hole there, really not a whole lot to worry about in this cooling system. I'm actually pretty impressed. Now, a water pump, just like anything else that has any sort of a radial bolt pattern where, you know, all the bolts are around a center like this, basically enclosing something like a valve cover, a water pump, timing cover, etc. You always want to make sure that you're tightening in alternating positions. What we're about to do next involves getting this bracket installed right here. Now it's time to install a brand new ignition coil that we got from Duralast. I hopped on the AutoZone Pro website, got this ordered up, and because it's Duralast, we know that it's gonna meet or exceed OE specifications and get this engine running nice and reliably, get nice, solid, consistent spark all the way across the board, and make sure that we're not gonna have any issues to worry about from this portion of our ignition system. Now that that's done, it's time to get some brand new Duralast spark plug wires installed. I'm gonna take this guy, head to the bench, get these put together. This is what's known as a set of universal spark plug wires, which translates to build your own. All right, now that I've got the wire cut to length, I'm gonna get our boot installed so I can get our terminal crimped on here. Slide this boot right onto the end here. Pretty good there. Let's go test fit this. That popped in there nice and good. And we'll just route it up to make sure it reaches where we need it to. Nice click on the spark plug. And then, of course, if we need to route this a little differently, we've got a little bit of room to work with, but that is sitting pretty good right there. Moving forward, I'm gonna go ahead, we'll get our fuel pump block-off plate installed. I tracked down some new bolts and washers for this, got the block-off plate, but we also have one more thing we're gonna be installing in this spot, and that is our fuel pressure regulator like I mentioned earlier. Now, I've already widened out these holes on the bracket to fit this size of bolt. We're gonna need some kind of a spacer, just a little bit in there to separate that bracket from this block-off plate, which is why I've got some extra washers here. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna get these bolts snugged up, one, to make sure that they fit, and two, to be 100% certain that our spacers are gonna work the way we want them to. We've got clearance from our block-off plate, gasket is in place, we're good to go here. We've got our new Duralast alternator installed, and to get that installed, I actually had to make this bracket custom because we couldn't find an original fit alternator to this engine. Now, the spacing is about 7 3/4, which is quite a bit when you think of that compared to regular alternators. So what I have here is a big block Chevy alternator with a 6 5/8 inch bolt spacing. So all we really had to do was just extend this lower bracket up some. Now, we're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead, while I'm thinking about it, get this engine filled back up with fresh oil and a new filter. And for that, we're gonna be using Schaeffer's racing oil. Now, this stuff is great. It's got extra zinc, so if you're running yourself a flat tapping engine, you know you've got that extra protection. It's also been race proven and is engine builder approved. In addition to the added zinc in this oil, it also has better film strength, so it's gonna cling better, and better resistance to thermal breakdown. So if you're working your engine hard, you've got that added peace of mind knowing that your oil is gonna be able to keep up. Well, we got a good bit of freshening up work done on this engine today, but still a little bit more work to do. I gotta clearance that bracket, put some more stuff back on, but it is getting dangerously close to being ready to go back in its home.
Yeah, and I got all the basic tube work done on this, all the patchwork done. So now when we get the frame back from sandblasting, everything's ready to start getting put back together.
Buddy, there is nothing basic about that. This is awesome.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Man, that looks great. You wanna go grab something to eat?
Absolutely.